Bill, Mutual Assistance in Criminal Matters Bill, and a bill for a special anti-corruption court. Senate President Bukola Saraki gave these assurances during the launch of a book written by Senator Inibehe in Abuja on Monday.
We know we have before us a number of bills that we believe also strengthen the fight. One, the whistleblower protection bill, which will also be drafted today. In the confusion of so many whistles, at the end of the day, nothing was achieved. We hope that when this is backed by legislation, we will have a greater value, and it is our hope that we can pass it before July of this year.
When those who celebrate the successes of the fight against corruption in terms of high-profile arrest, high-profile investigation, high-profile prosecution, and even detention, they are missing the point, because that is dealing with the symptoms of corruption. If we must make progress, our focus should be to replace the old order that was corrupt with a new order that makes corruption near impossible to take place.
Very high positive resultant effects from the public. My motion on TSA got over 7 billion recovered to government treasury. And I've also brought bills, and I can tell you that 90% of my bills and motions all border on issues of corruption, because corruption is the bane of our development. And once we get corruption right, then development will definitely naturally come.
We know we have...
Senate President Bukola Saraki has been receiving knocks since he berated the federal government's anti-graft agencies, saying they preferred showmanship. Saraki also said the focus of the war on graft should be on prevention rather than punishment. So we ask, what do you make of Senate President Bukola Saraki's submission that the anti-graft war should focus on prevention rather than punishment? Visit and like our Facebook page at TVC Connect and follow us on Twitter, also at TVC Connect, to join the conversation. Your comment may be among those to be read during our flagship news bulletin at 10 p.m. later today. So log on and join the discussion.
Joining us now is a lawyer, Inibehe Effiong, to talk about the remarks from the Senate President Bukola Saraki and the Speaker of the House of Representatives, Yakubu Dogara, on the roles the anti-graft agencies have played, talking about the FCC and the ICPC, to mention, well, the major anti-graft agencies. Barrister Effiong, you're welcome to TVC News once again. So, Saraki, who is currently in an ongoing trial now on false assets declaration, is now speaking, castigating the roles of ICPC and Co, now saying they do not attend to the substance but are mere attributing or doing showmanship. What do you have to say?
By way of preliminary points, I will start by saying that my opinion is that it is an abuse of language for Senator Inibehe to write a book and name it The Antidotes of Corruption, the Nigerian Example. I'm of the humble view that the correct name of that book should have been The Antidotes of Corruption, the Inibehe Example, or the Bukola Saraki Example. These are not people who should gather to tell us what corruption is or is not. But going to the substance of your question, it is indeed a tragic irony that the Senate President will have the effrontery to open his mouth to say that the fight against corruption is showmanship. Is stealing of public funds not showmanship? What do they steal public funds? It is to show that they are flamboyant. Look at even the book launcher. What are his antecedents? A man who flaunts exotic luxury cars, that is showmanship. So even the cost and the process of being prosecuted, of being asked to give account of stewardship, and the media covers it. It is very unfortunate for somebody to say that is showmanship. The media must cover trials. Even in the US, in the United Kingdom, in France, all developed countries across the world, you cannot fight corruption in the closet. Because when you steal privately, that even the Bible says, when you do good things privately, God rewards you publicly. But for me, I would say that when you do evil secretly, you must be exposed publicly. So that statement for me is baseless, is blatant nonsense, with due respect to the Senate President.
Okay, granted that you have reservations about, this people talking about corruption because they themselves are being tried or accused of one corrupt conduct or the other. But if you look at the media commentary about the approach of the anti-graft agencies, particularly the FCC, to fighting corruption, the commentary really is that the commission is embarking on media trial or is doing more of grandstanding than actually, tackling the issues of corruption. Is that correct or not?
If a yes and no answer, there is no straight, it's not a straitjacket situation. While we have genuine reservation about some lapses that have been observed in the fight against corruption, for example, prosecutorial deficiencies, where we have seen that EFCC is yet to master the art of investigating and prosecuting financial and economic crimes, which is understandable. There is a question of capacity and manpower development of prosecutors for the anti-corruption agencies. That is understood. But let us not miss the point. The point is that corruption is a plague that has ravaged this country. So when people say it is grandstanding, I tend to side with the anti-corruption agencies in some instances, because we cannot throw away the baby with the bad water. And also we cannot overlook the character of the people that are driving this advocacy. You have a lawmaker who has been shown to have lied publicly about his academic qualifications, a lawmaker that is currently under investigation for allegedly operating and owning foreign accounts, launching a book on anti-corruption. You have a Senate president standing trial at the Code of Conduct Bureau, at the Code of Conduct Tribunal for corruption. You have the wife of a former president of this country, Patient Jonathan, currently having cases in court on corruption, sitting down to launch a book on anti-corruption. It's a slap on all of us.
But you're a counsel, of course, now, and of course, you know that all these are accusations until the courts deem otherwise. Now, that by the side, it's a Sage, Professor Sage. Now, while of course opposing what Senate President Saraki said the Nigerian story is actually rather different. Now, fighting corruption entails battling satanic forces, in his own words. Now, to say that it's extremely difficult now to tackle corruption the way Saraki and Co said they want corruption tackled. Do you admit that there is something particularly wrong now with the Nigerian system to make corruption so difficult to nip in its bud?
My view is that Professor Sage, who I hold in high esteem, spoke in a metaphorical language. Corruption is not a spiritual thing. You don't need to pour libation to fight corruption. So it is not spiritual. Because when you steal, you don't steal as an act of witchcraft. You steal physically. So when you fight it, you must fight physically. The point we are making is that those who are making these statements should not be listened to. If it is showmanship, why does a Senate president have to appear with over 20, 30 lawyers at his trial, when only one lawyer can address the court? That is showmanship. So no matter you can't give what you don't have. It is allegation, I agree, but in the fight against corruption, perception is very important. Because no parent will send his child, to a school whose teachers are illiterate. And no good Christian will attend a church that a notorious prostitute is known to be a pastor. So the messenger is as important as the message.
Relatedly now, let's look at Speaker Yakubu Dogara's comments on corruption at that book launch. He said, when you make high-profile arrests and high-profile prosecutions, that you are tackling the symptoms rather than the causes of corruption. Now, let's look at it critically. What are the causes? What are the symptoms? How do you, in his own view, make corruption unattractive?
It's a two-way thing. You can't just prevent corruption, because we have totally failed as a nation in preventing corruption. So you must fight it while we are still taking steps to prevent. We must fight it. Even the Bible says, spare the rod and spoil the child. So the punitive measure is part of the efficacy and mechanism of fighting corruption. However, there are various indices, there are various things that we can say that reduces corruption. Most importantly is the absence of discipline, the absence of sanction. Because when you have the culture of impunity, people steal, look at people stealing billions of naira, they get away with it. because they believe nothing will happen. That on its own is an incentive for others to steal. So that encourages corruption. And you also have the culture, the cultural position that we have seen in Nigeria. Nigeria seems to be very interested in people who cannot explain their source of income. You see people displaying wealth, and they are celebrated by churches, they are celebrated by the society. So nobody is ashamed.
All right.
That is why you can see people with allegations of corruption on their neck, going on public TV, going on air, to announce that they are launching a book on how to fight corruption.
All right.
We must move beyond this drama as a nation.
All right.
And the earlier for us.
Inibehe Effiong, thank you very much for speaking with us on
My pleasure.
TVC News.